Hello there! We have some exciting news. DAOStack is launching a call for proposals with its first DAO, the Genesis Alpha DAO, using its decentralized budgeting tool Alchemy. Now, to give you a better understanding of what types of proposals you could maybe put up, let's hear from the DAOStack team themselves about what ideas they really love and would like to see happen.
Hi, my name is Dor Garbash, and I'm the product director of Alchemy. We're looking at three important things that are all support a central value proposal of Alchemy, which is basically, it's a platform where organizations can put on one side funds and engage their large communities. And on the other hand, they get exciting proposals to improve the organization and to engage their community. So it's all about this creative energy and benefit that's created when thousands of people collaborate together to figure out what's the best next step for the organization, all the diversity and amazing ideas that can be created when different people and experts from different fields come together and work in this kind of bottom-up fashion.
My name is Tibet Sprague, and I am the lead developer of Alchemy. We are using it to do budgeting within DAOStack and for DAOs of all kinds. My main focus is the tooling. Like, what kinds of tools can we build to support the mission of DAOStack, sort of operating system for collective intelligence. I like the idea of just focusing on the mission, improving the processes of DAOStack, the governance processes, the human practices, ways to create more collective intelligence for DAOStack and in the world. I guess an operating system, you can say, has all these different layers, like the full stack of things that are needed to create structures for human collaboration and society that are more collective, more decentralized, where everybody feels more empowered and able to be involved in creating the world that we want, or the organizations that we want, or the communities that we want, depending on what scale you're looking at. But ultimately creating a more collaborative, cooperative, and sustainable, and I think say smart, right? Collective intelligence, and part of that is about how do we create organizations and communities in a society that is sustainable, that works with our planet and with each other in smart ways.
You have a fund, maybe $1 million, maybe $100 million. You want to be able to deploy that $100 million very effectively. The first feature that we have is that I call it like a flat transactions, which means that you are suggesting make a transaction into this or that address for this or that purpose. And then the crowd is voting, and then if that is approved, the transaction is just happening at the same time. Basically, the whole cycle of proposing an idea to budget and proposing the budget for that idea and proposing the beneficiary of that idea and assuring the completion of that task, all that is condensed into a single step. Of course, that's the reason we started with that, is because it's very simple, but the downside is that in the real world, you need much more flexible budgeting process. So, for example, the next step could be bounty. You can let people suggest tasks, and other people approving that they want to complete that task, and then someone else approving, suggesting the budget for that task. Now, the second step is that now anyone can take that task and complete it, and now the DAO needs to verify, confirm, or judge, or evaluate that the task has been completed satisfactorily. So the DAO says yes for the task and the budget, and then again the DAO says yes for the successful completion of that task. Upon the second step, the jury for the evaluation of that task doesn't need to be again the whole DAO. Maybe I want to propose to build another feature for Alchemy, and I propose that to allocate $20,000, 40 Ether for that task. And I also propose that a multisig of Adam, myself, and Ezra from the pollinators would be confirming that the task has been completed satisfactorily after the completion of the task. The bounty will be 40 Ether, to award for the cost of that development. But then there will be another bounty in Gen tokens, let's say between 500 to 5,000, that will be allocated for the completion of the task per the level of success of evaluated of that completion. So we will grade between 1 to 10, and that completer of the task will get between 500 to 5,000 Gen according to the level of success of that task. So as you can see, you can make more and more complicated and advanced features for budgeting. And I think proposing one very concrete such process of multi-step budgeting, I think will be very valuable for real world management of funds.
I'm really excited to see new governance models get proposed, because that's the entire point of DAOStack, is to be this platform for experimenting with different governance models. I think figuring out the governance models of the future is going to require a lot of experimentation. So I'm excited to see people proposing, I want to create the liquid democracy model and integrate that into DAOStack, or something else creative and new that hasn't been thought of.
The three objectives or the three metrics that support this objective is, first of all, proposals that would improve the quantity of proposals submitted in Alchemy and in Genesis Alpha. So that involves a lot like engaging the community, reaching out to people that are like part of DAOStack and getting them motivated and ready and prepared to file proposals. It can involve like marketing efforts. It can involve removing friction, like technical friction from submitting proposals, like building better tools, like a bot that would help you just have a conversation, for example, and output it as a finished proposal. The second metric is the quality of proposals. I think one of it is about the coherence, about the ability to be transparent and communicate what are the objectives, installing like good human processes for people to, for example, get feedback so they can improve their proposal, understand what's already being implemented, have good awareness of it. The third type of objective is like, how do we increase the amount of Gen that's being staked on proposals? So what kind of tooling we can give for people to easily make stakes? Like, how can we organize proposals in a way that makes it easy for people to identify proposals they feel comfortable to stake on, for example? How can we engage communities of experts from around the world and incentivize them to try out the system? How can we communicate what Gen is and explain it to people through tutorials? If the DAO manages to do effective actions that support, kind of like push the needle for this kind of objectives, we did something amazing.
Maybe a third avenue would be to build the community of builders around Alchemy. For example, you can build a new kind of a new DAO that is both a project by itself, but is also going to build the community, the Genesis community, the Genesis DAO community around Alchemy itself. So for example, one such DAO that I have in mind is, I call it the curated knowledge-based DAO. You want to build a movement around the project, you need to kind of like generate a better and better coherence of that knowledge among participants. So that if I'm a new participant in the community, I can easily find the way to the right knowledge. Like I can easily find what are the articles that I should be reading. You can think of it in terms of Wikipedia, or a wiki, internal wiki for a community. The thing though is that if you are speaking about decentralized project, you also need to have a decentralized wiki. So that's a very interesting DAO that someone can propose and build. It can literally be a wiki. The only difference is, so I call it links and dots, because each item, each object in that DAO is either a document of links to other documents or documents with text, or of course combination with the two. So right now, when you form a wiki, you have certain administrators and they have the rights to put something in or not. And then how you make that decentralized, where anyone can propose a new item in that wiki, anyone can propose a new page if you wish, or edit an existing page. And then the DAO at each instance is voting about inclusion or not inclusion of that page. imagine that this kind of decision-making process is automatically integrated with a certain wiki structure that once the DAO is voting for adding certain page, it's automatically being added to a certain domain. So I think this will be a very interesting DAO. I think that by working out this DAO, the working group will learn two things. Firstly, it will learn how to, from A to Z, how a DAO works and what part needs to be included and how it can be integrated with the stack. But more interestingly, the result will be an actual community that can self-organize around a decentralized knowledge base, which I think is critical for further development.
There are basically two proposals I want to give as an example of something I personally would be thrilled to see. One, Telegram integration with Alchemy. So the community can be notified once proposals are close to being closed, and also be notified when new proposals that are relevant to them are being posted. Just keep everybody informed and engaged. And this also, works in all sorts of other integrations to platforms like a Slack integration, a Discord integration, email integration, mobile integration. All these things would really increase engagement of the community. Another example of a proposal I would be thrilled about, bounties. Like, imagine that in Alchemy, rather than just offering a proposal that includes people figuring out the ideas and the budget, but also are forced to manage the execution of the proposal, if people could just approve bounties, so we can vote together on bounties, and then people could bid or try to solve these bounties. So I think there are many existing technological solutions of how to do bounties in blockchain, and we could really easily integrate that. And I think that would be amazing. My last idea for a proposal is a PPIS integration. If you don't know PPIS is basically just a blockchain version of Twitter. They basically just copied all the Twitter UI, but everything is stored on IPFS, and the hashes themselves are stored on the blockchain itself, on the Ethereum blockchain itself, not on the state, but rather on logs. And the idea is basically that if we will have like a PPIS integration, then we can have something like freedom of speech for a DAO. Basically, you could think of the first DAO which is actually talking, and people will vote on, or basically propose and then vote on different tweets, and we will have like a DAO that actually can tweet and express its opinions on different things. And I think this will be like a killer feature, because freedom of speech and related to this is, of course, freedom of code and freedom for financial interactions, which Bitcoin basically makes into freedom of speech, because transactions are just code. I think this is one of the most important and strongest features that we can have, and I would really like to see such a proposal on Genesis Alpha.
So one more thing that I feel that has a, I would say, strong demand is that we need to onboard a large number of projects that want to use the stack. And then the second part is they actually want to help them to integrate with the stack. Quite surprisingly, the first part it seems to be, at least for now, it seems to be very easy. We get a lot of demand from a lot of projects that are interested in building the stack. So on that regard, there is no bottleneck in there. Like the sale process, there is no bottleneck. But there is a very large bottleneck, critical bottleneck in terms of the actual integration. There is a certain distance between understanding that you want to be a DAO or you have a use case that you want to decentralize, and there are two more steps that you have to go. First, you need to understand what it means to be decentralized, what it means like at the most, feature protocol level, like how you break that understanding that you want to be decentralized into very specific protocol modules, I would say, protocol features. And then the next step, how you move from there to actually translate into development of very specific modules on the DAOStack, and then the integration with them. I think that's right now the bottleneck for very fast growth of the ecosystem. Because a lot of people know that they want to decentralize, but they're not sure what it means, how to break it into product modules, and then how to turn that into DAOStack modules and to integrate with them. So helping them into actually defining the user stories and the protocols that they mean by that, breaking those protocols into very specific logical modules, and then either using existing modules of the stack or developing, or even just specifying which are the modules that need to be developed. I think this pipeline, this breaking from needs to protocols to modules, I think this is a very valuable contribution. But then even more valuable than that would be to actually template that process. So how do you define that process from use case understanding into protocols, into modules, into developing specification? How you define templating that process? What are the 45 questions that if someone has answered them along the way, he has the entire picture that he needs to be working out?
How can DAOStack itself start sort of eating its own dog food in terms of its literal just practices of how the company runs? There could be a lot of proposals around, I want to facilitate a group process in DAOStack to improve our communication skills or our conflict resolution skills, or implement a process around that, and sort of see how the DAO and proposal process can work in terms of improving just the internal functioning of the organization.
No, another kind of features, which are features that are less obvious, but you really need to have them very well. And also it's less obvious how they would look like. One feature of this kind, I call it the DAO browser. People tend to think about DAOs as sort of like islands. You have the DAO A, that's an island, you get in, you see the proposal, you approve them, great, you make budgeting. Then you have DAO B, and that's it. But the future is not going to look like that. More realistically, you would have DAO A, which is maybe a project is managing a project around maybe DAOStack itself, and then it will have many different agents, some of which are human agents, but many of them are themselves DAOs. Now then those DAOs will run their own budget and their own governance system and their own proposals and so on and so forth, and once in a while will make contribution to the larger DAO and so on and so forth. Like a fractal tree of DAOs within DAOs within DAOs. But then even more so, those agencies will be, it will not be even tree structure, because an agency, let's say that this is a front-end agency of 200 front-end developers, they can be part of the DAOStack team, the DAOStack DAO, Genesis DAO, but then they can also work on another DAO, maybe on the Endor or the Gnosis DAO. The topology of agencies will be much more like the internet, like a mesh network topology. Now, if you keep imagining that forward, you get to a complete gigantic zoo of DAOs and agencies, just as you have today a gigantic zoo of web pages and websites. And you have to have some sort of like way to explore that landscape effectively. Today we call it Google, right? Search engine. The problem is with a search engine in the way that we see today is that you lack the context. So if you're asking, I need such and such, it brings you to a point in that mesh network, but it doesn't give you any indication of the structure, the context of that point versus that point versus that point. At each point, you see the links to the nearby points, but you don't see any context or structure. Now, when it's just about a collection of data, that's fine, but when it's about a project and departments within project and so on and so forth, you have to have sort of a context with which you can dive directly into the project and make your best contribution. So for that, you would have to have at some point a DAO browser, like a browser that you can browse between the different organizations that you can work on, between the different tasks, between the different goals, with different people, you can browse within them. And since you have to have like a zoom out, zoom in context, I would predict that this browser would have to be a visualized browser. So not a browser with links and key searches, but rather a browser that you actually browse within graphs, browse in, zoom out, and browse within organizations, which each organization, each department, each group, each team, each reputation value system has its own symbol and metric and whatnot. So I think this DAO browser is really, really important, and even specifying a prototype for that would be a major contribution.
On a different area, I just think it would be hopefully we'll see this a lot, but it'll be great for organizations to say, hey, I want to implement DAOStack in my organization. And maybe there's some person in that organization who steps up and wants to spearhead that. And they create a proposal and say, I would love basically DAOStack's help in implementing, bringing alchemy into my organization or creating a new governance model, and we'll need a budget for that. And I think that'll be a cool way to start getting DAOStack out there into the world and into more organizations, and just use the proposal process for that.